Welcome to Learning English with Captain Binoy Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Devkuri, Kozhikode, Kerala. In the previous lectures, we studied about the vowel sounds of receipt pronunciation English. And we know about the pure vowels, the diphthongs, the triphthongs, the cardinal vowels, the primary cardinal vowels, and the secondary cardinal vowels. Today in this lecture, we learn in detail about the consonants of receipt pronunciation. And we know that consonants are known as stops. You see, the consonants are divided further into many groups like the stops, the continuants, the fricatives, the bilabials, the post-alveolar. Alright. Similarly, we can see that there are, of course, a number of divisions within the consonants. So, all this division of the consonant sounds of English is based on two factors. That is, number one, the place of articulation. Number two, the manner of articulation. So, we have to understand that a consonant sound is a voiced or a voiceless sound in the production of which there is either a narrowing or a closing or a closure of the passage of air so as to cause an audible plosion or friction. This is the very definition of a consonant sound. Everybody knows that, and everyone has to know that there are three important characteristics or factors that just define what a consonant is. Number one is a voiced or a voiceless sound. What does it mean? There is the vibration of the vocal cords in the case of the voiced sounds, and there is no vibration in the case of the voiceless sounds. So there are two types of sounds, voiced or voiceless. Right. And now further into the definition. Alright, they are again produced with either a closure of the passage of air. The passage of air, that is oral cavity and nasal cavity. Somewhere there is a closure, and sometimes there is, of course, a narrowing of the passage of air, and air is just going out with two, that is explosion or plosion on one side, the other side friction. So we can say that a consonant is a voiced or voiceless sound in the production or articulation of which there is either a narrowing or a closure of the passage of air so as to cause audible plosion or friction. This is the definition of the consonants. Now we move forward to the very classification of consonants based on number one, the place of articulation. That is what we do right now. We are going to look at all the 24 consonants or consonant phonemes, and we're just going to classify them based on the place of articulation. And when we say the place of articulation, what we have to consider is the active articulator and the passive articulator. So we have the classification of consonants based on the place of articulation. Okay, place of articulation. And we have to keep in mind the two articulators, that is, of course, the active articulator and the passive articulator. So, when we classify the 24 consonants into different groups based on the place of articulation, we come across 9 types of consonants, rather 9 groups of consonants based on the place of articulation. And let's just be familiar with those terms, those 9 terms with which we classify the consonants into, group the consonants into different classifications, rather different categories, right? Number 1, we have the bilabial consonants. Number 2, the labiodental consonants. Number 3, dental consonants. Number 4, alveolar consonants. Number 5, post-alveolar consonants. Number 6, palato-alveolar consonants. And number 7, palatal consonants. Number 8, velar consonants. And number 9, that's the last, the glottal consonants. Glottal consonants are also called laryngeal consonants. Laryngeal because glottis, larynx. They are also called laryngeal. That is again another expression for the 9th category of consonants based on place of articulation. Now we are going forward to look at each of the consonants under each of these 9 grouping, that is based on the place of articulation. Let's look at the first group, that is of course bilabial consonants. In all the 9 groups, we will be looking at the place of articulation. That is of course the active articulator. Which is the active articulator? Which is the passive articulator? And we know that quite often the active articulator will be, alright, the lower lip or the tongue, some part of the tongue. Now let's look at the first type of consonant based on the place of articulator, the bilabial consonants. Bilabial, very easy to understand. Bilabial, both the lips are the articulators. Lower lip is the active articulator and upper lip is the passive articulator. And there are 3 bilabial sounds in English. They are per as in pen, per as again in paper, and b as in bin or bag or basket, and as in my, mango, men, moon, right? So look at that. Pen, lower lip is against the upper lip and we say pen, bag, mango. Easy to understand. Bilabial consonants. We have 3 bilabial consonants, right? Lower lip is the active articulator, upper lip is the passive articulator. Now we look at the second category, labiodental consonants. Labiodental consonants, easy again to understand. Labio is the lip, dental the teeth, and labiodental consonants are consonants in the articulation of which the lower lip is against the upper teeth. The lower lip is against the upper teeth, and we have the sounds, 2 sounds we have, that is f as in flower and as in veterinary, vegetable, vehicle, flower, fly, feel, fell, fool. Alright, all this we have the sound which is of course labiodental. Once again, lower lip is the active articulator and upper teeth is the passive articulator, and we say fly, veterinary. Easy to understand. 2 sounds labiodental. Now we move on to the third, that is of course dental. Very easy to understand. The teeth, and these sounds, the dental sounds, are articulated by the tip of the tongue against the upper teeth. And we have of course the sound, there are 2 sounds, that is of course thank you, th as in thank you, and the as in this, thank you, thought, thief, father, mother. Alright, once again, the tip of the tongue is the active articulator. The tip of the tongue is against the upper teeth, and we have dental sounds. Two dental sounds, they are th and the, as in thank you, think, thief, this, father, mother. Now we come to the fourth category based on the place of articulation, and we say the fourth category are alveolar sounds. Alveolar sounds. And we know what alveolum is. Alveolum is the teeth ridge. It is the hard palate. It is the roof of the mouth. It is part of the roof of the mouth. It is in fact in the upper part of the roof of the mouth where the teeth is fixed. That is the teeth ridge or alveolar ridge or alveolum. And alveolar sounds are produced by the tip of the tongue or the blade of the tongue. Alright, the tip can be sometimes, or the blade of tongue can be sometimes. It is against the teeth ridge. So the tip or the blade of the tongue, the tip or the blade of the tongue is against the alveolar ridge or the teeth ridge. Alveolar or the teeth ridge, right? And we say tiger, burning bright, we have in fact some 6 sounds there. Tip, the blade of the tongue, right? Tip, tiger, the blade of the tongue is against the alveolar ridge, the hard palate, and we say tiger. And the next one is de. Again, the de, it is the blade of the tongue. It is against, of course, the alveolum, and we say driver, dream. And now we have the next one, that is of course never, now, nil, no. It is again the tip of the tongue, or rather the blade of the tongue against the alveolar or teeth ridge, and we say never again, never. Alright, now we have the next sound, which is alveolar, that is little, right? The blade of the tongue is against, of course, the teeth ridge, and we say little, less, lean, love, laughter. Alright, now we have the next sound, that is of course cinema. Again, it's very obvious and clear. The tip of the tongue or the blade of the tongue, right? Is against the alveolar, and we say sit, cinema. Alright, now we have the sixth alveolar sound, that is z and zoo, zigzag, zoology. Alright, all this we have the sound z, that is the blade of the tongue is against the alveolum, and we say zigzag. Alright, so this is of course the fourth category of the consonant based on the place of articulation. Alveolar sounds, we have 6 alveolar sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 alveolar sounds. Now we move on to the fifth division of the consonant sounds based on the place of articulation. That is of course post-alveolar sounds. Post-alveolar. Again, very obvious, because the post means after. Post-alveolar. Alveolar is teeth ridge. Post-alveolar is a sound that is produced with, of course, the tongue. The tip of the tongue is held close to the back of the teeth ridge. That part of the roof of the mouth coming immediately after the teeth ridge. That is post-alveolar. The tip of the tongue is only held close to the passive articulator, that is of course the alveolar. There is no contact, and we say the sound like river, ran. It is just the river, ran, rain, right? So this is in fact post-alveolar. The tip of the tongue is just lifted towards a place after, behind, post or after the alveolar, and we say river, rain, ran, rad, alright, and it's known as post alveolar, so also it is known as post alveolar frictionless continuum. Rain, there is continuation, right? So we call it once again post alveolar, or based on the manner and place together, we call it post alveolar frictionless continuum. Now we come to that is just one, alright, number of the consonant is just one, that is post alveolar. Now we come to the sixth, that is palato alveolar. Palato alveolar sounds are produced by the tip and the blade of the tongue against the palate, that is of course the hard palate, and we have the sounds like sh, sh, sh. The tip and the blade of the tongue is lifted towards the palate, that is of course the hard palate, right? Sh, sh. The roof of the mouth, and it is again the front and the blade of the tongue is just fronted towards the alveolar. So we have two parts of the roof of the mouth in the production of this particular sound. Palato alveolar, the tongue is initially lifted towards the palate, that is of course the hard palate, rather the roof of the mouth, the center of the roof of the mouth, and from the palate, that is the hard palate, the center of the roof of the mouth, the tongue is fronted towards the alveolar, and we say shy, shine, shiver, shoe, she. Alright, the sound is sh. And the next sound is l, as in genre, vision, mission. R is the sound. And the next is like church, chill, chat, chur, chur. Alright, it's the same way. The tip and the blade of the tongue is lifted towards the center of the roof of the mouth and fronted towards the alveolar, and we have palato alveolar, church, chill, chill. And next is of course joy, bridge, judge, justice, right? Same way, the blade and the front of the tongue is lifted towards the center of the roof of the mouth, the hard palate, and it is lifted forward of course to the alveolar, and we say palato alveolar. We have 4 palato alveolar sounds. And now we move on to the next category, that is the 7th category based on the place of articulation. That is of course just one. Palatal is the sound, palatal, and the palatal sound is produced with yesterday. Yeah is the sound. The blade of the tongue is lifted towards the palate, the hard palate, and there is a slight fronting towards of course the front part of the roof of the mouth, that is of course the upper teeth, and we say the sound yesterday, yes, yahoo, yam, yield. Alright, and we have the sound palatal sound, just one in number, and we move on to the 8th category based on place of articulation, that is of course the velar sounds. Velar, they are in fact 3 in number, and it is easy to understand. Velar sounds are produced at the velum or the soft palate. We know the fact that velum is also called the soft palate. And where do you have the velum? We have the roof of the mouth. We have, this is of course the we have the upper teeth. We have the upper lip. Okay. Then we have upper teeth. We have the hard palate. We have of course the soft palate. Alright. Here we have the lower teeth, lower lip. Alright. And we have of course the jaw here. So this particular back of the roof of the mouth, which is rather soft and hanging and flexible, is known as the soft palate or the velum, and sounds which are produced by the back of the tongue against the soft palate or the velum are called the velar sounds. And we have 3 velar sounds. They are k, like in king, cobra, clover, kick, and g as in give, get, given, gave, and as in ring, bring, ding, dong, right? All this we have the sound and keep in mind the fact that this particular sound is either in the middle or at the end of every word in English. It never comes in the initial position. So that is what we have to keep in mind about the velar sounds. Active articulator is the back of the tongue, and the passive articulator is velum or the soft palate. That is the 8th category based on the place of articulation, 3 velar sounds. And now we move on to the last classification based on the place of articulation, that is of course the glottal sounds. It is also called laryngeal or laryngeal, and we know that glottal sounds are sounds produced at the glottis. That is what we have to keep in mind. Glottis, Glottis is glottis, right? And everybody knows what glottis is. Glottis is the gap between the vocal cords. We have the vocal cords on top of the windpipe. Air passes from mouth as well as the lungs through the gap between the vocal cords, and that glottis, that is the opening at the top of the windpipe or vocal cords, is glottis. And we know that glottis is situated at a place called larynx, that is above the collarbone and below the jaw. We have larynx area, and sounds coming from the larynx area, glottis, laryngeal area are known as glottal sounds. And we have just one glottal sound, that is of course the h sound, as in happiness, hope, how, heal, heap, right? All this we have the sound h. So now we have seen all the 9 important categories of the consonants based on the place of articulation. We are very sure about all the sounds. We are sure about the active articulator. We are sure about the passive articulator. And we come to the end of the session. That is of course the discussion and understanding of the consonants based on place of articulation. 9 category: bilabial, labiodental, dental, alveolar, post-alveolar, palato-alveolar, palato, velar, and glottal. So let us just remember all these classifications and let's be experts in phonology of English. Thanks a lot for listening. May God bless you.